Hello friends and welcome back. So today we're doing another video in our Things to Know series, and it's going to be on digital photography. I myself consider this one of the most important elements, and why is that? Because some out there have dared to ask the question, is Starfield a cozy game? But I've known for quite some time it is in fact a cozy game. To point to some of my friends across the Pacific Ocean that love this game. They call this crime-ridden Animal Crossing, and that is because of all the cozy elements. Whether you're into shipbuilding, outpost building, exploring and seeing beautiful vistas, or you're trying to roleplay as a xenobiologist and catalog all the different alien life around the settled systems, one thing that binds all these kind of different groups and communities that play this game differently together is this underlying element of digital photography, because these people will share photos online, myself included, and kind of this is how they celebrate and enjoy the game, is by taking photos and sharing their experience with others. But with this video, this is going to be a two-part video. The first part of this is going to be basically a beginner guide to digital photography in Starfield, and then the second part is going to be focusing on like the different communities and how digital photography is the underlying linchpin that kind of binds them all together. But let's go ahead and explain digital photography. How do you open up photo mode? So you first thing you do is you open up your scanner, and then on the Xbox, it is depressing the right joystick will open up photo mode. Now, it is what I would suggest is switching to free camera mode, and that allows you to kind of freely move the camera back and forth, etc., to find kind of like the perfect spot. But sometimes you do need to kind of like interact with like NPCs. So here we're going to just do like a portrait photo. And for these, what I usually like to do is I like to get like a nice vista. Here I'm using Aquila. This is the back portion of it. It's one of my favorite spots to take photos, and it's mainly because the two potted plants there add a little bit of color and brightness to the photo, which can otherwise be a little drab. But after we get into photo mode and we kind of get our camera set up here, I'm going to make some adjustments to the saturation. What does saturation do? That can either mute the colors and make them look muted, or it can brighten the colors and make them look brighter. Now, here we're kind of going into the filter section. One of the first things I like to do before I start toggling around in the filters is turn down the filter intensity. Like the filter intensity at like 100 can be rather difficult to kind of gauge whether you like the filter or not. So what I like to do is turn down the filter intensity to about 25% before I start toggling through the different filters and see what captures my eye. But, we're going to go ahead and make some more camera adjustments and make sure we get our camera at the right spot, right height and depth, etc., to get like the proper angle. And then here we're adjusting the field of vision. So after I get the camera set up to where I want it, I can zoom in the camera with the field of vision. And we're going to get into that in the next one, because when it comes to space photos and taking photos of objects that are very distant, that zoom function is going to be pretty useful. Because as you saw right there, that planet was probably twice the size of the character I'm taking a picture of. But when we pan this up after moving the camera forward, it has become a lot smaller in relationship to the character I'm taking a photo of. So that's basically the difference between moving the camera and then also the field of vision. So here we're zooming it in, the relationship in the size of the character and the planet is staying the same as we're zooming it in. So that's basically when you are moving the camera, you're changing the perspective. So that can change how large objects appear in the background in comparison to the foreground of the photo. And that's going to tell you kind of whether you should be zooming in or moving the camera forward, is how you want the background objects to appear in relationship to the foreground objects. Or, in this particular situation, the foreground object is my companion, which I am taking a picture of. We can also see, if you go over to the character section of the photo mode, you can do different poses. So we're doing the wave pose. So I have the character kind of reaching up towards the planet, which is actually, way behind her. But we're changing the perspective to make it look like she's kind of reaching towards the planet itself. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to adjust our brightness, our saturation, and our contrast. Our contrast is going to make the brights brighter and the darks darker. And then we're also going to turn that saturation up to make the colors pop a little bit more on that planet. Those blue oceans kind of come out more. And this is something I like to do because, at least with these space photos, it kind of almost gives it like a cinematic movie poster feel when you kind of black out the dark areas of the photo itself and then brighten the other areas. So I usually love to go with like a high contrast photo for space photos. But we're doing the same trick here. I'm kind of turning down the filter, and then I'm finding a particular filter I like. Myself, I happen to be very partial to the Apollo 2 filter, and that's just because I love the bluish hue it gives everything. I don't know why, I just like blue. So sometimes we just like things and we don't know why. But also, you can see there are many different frames. Myself, I'm very partial to this Starfield frame. I feel like it's very minimalistic and it's not very intrusive on the photo, whereas some of the frames can be kind of intrusive and they take up a lot of the photo. Just adding that simple little Starfield logo is good enough for me. But as you can see here, we basically have our photo almost ready. I think I might make some smaller adjustments to the contrast. Yeah, I went ahead and turned it all the way up to kind of really blacken out the edges of the photo, make things a little bit darker on the edges and a little bit brighter in the bright points of the photo itself. But to actually take a photo, that would be the A button to take it in game. When you do take it in game, it becomes part of the selection to be used as loading screens, which is very nice. But I will also mention that if you're like me and you do mod your game out a lot and you constantly deleting your reserve space, what happens is when you delete your reserve space, it also deletes your photos. So if you push the window and a window key on your Xbox, I believe it'd be screen print on the PC, it will take it to the system. So that window and a window key takes it on the Xbox itself. And then if you hit the Xbox button itself and then hit your right bumper and bump all the way over to the last tab, that will be the media tab. You can find your photos there. You can select them, click on them, look at them, and then you can upload them to the Xbox network. And if you happen to have the Xbox app on your phone, guess what you can do? You can download the photos to share with friends who also enjoy the game, which is probably half the fun of the game itself, is sharing your experiences through digital photography. So here we are taking a photo, and this happens to be capturing both Aquila and Kodos. This was completely opportunistic. I didn't realize Kodos was behind Aquila when I started taking the photos, and then I saw it peeking out, and I'm like, I'm gonna get a 2-4. And that's a lot of like digital photography, is you'll just see like weird events going on in the skybox up above, and you can kind of take some quick photos of them and just show like, hey, look, I saw this really cool, interesting event. But also what I'm going to show you is you can do some fun stuff with the poses here. So we're going to do this fun little pose here where the character is kind of holding their arms up, making it look like they're kind of holding the planets up, so that you can do fun and interesting stuff like that. But now we're going to go ahead and take a couple combat photos. These are a little bit more tricky. And what I'm going to say is you cannot be opening up your scanner and going into photo mode that way. For combat photos, what you need to do is you need to hit your start button and enter photo mode through the start menu itself. And why is that? That is because if you open up your scanner, what it does is it puts your weapon down. So that kind of like defeats the purpose of like these combat photos. Um, but the main trick or thing I find with combat photos is trying to get a photo while bullets are in the air. And that's mainly you have to have like kind of a weird mechanics grip on your controller where you're aiming, shooting, and also pushing the start button all at the same time. Can be rather challenging to do, but after you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. In this first photo, didn't happen to do it. I didn't capture it until it kind of my ammunition was already hitting the enemy. But we have these explosions going on because I'm using explosive rounds, and I'm going to take advantage of this situation to kind of take a interesting photo with some interesting effects going across the screen here, and make some interesting photos here. But just toggling through the filters until I kind of find one that fits what I want to do. And this black and white filter is it. I like the look of it, and basically we're going to take a photo like this, and I'm just making some small camera adjustments at this point in time to kind of get the explosion effect the way I want it. So a lot of digital photography within Starfield is kind of opportunistic like this, where you see weird scenes going on and you kind of just take weird angles of it to make some cool effects and have some interesting photos going on. So we have that photo done and out of the way. We're going to actually take a couple more combat photos because they're probably the most challenging of the photos to take. Taking a photo of the skybox is actually pretty easy because you can take your sweet time doing it, whereas taking combat photos is all about capturing combat while it's occurring, which can be kind of difficult to do because you need to pause the game, enter photo mode, and you need to do it, while there's like bullets in the air and stuff's going on, which can be rather challenging, especially in like difficult combat situations. But here I've kind of stopped the game, I've entered photo mode, and what I'm doing is I'm just kind of panning the camera around for an angle I like. And what I'm going to try and do is capture these tracer rounds in the sky with my character itself to make an interesting photo. So we actually have the tracer rounds here. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use this field of vision, because if I move the camera forward, I will move past those tracer rounds. And this is exactly why you need to understand the difference between moving your camera and changing the field of vision. So changing the field of vision doesn't change the position of the camera. It's basically like using the zoom function on a camera. So we will still see these things even though we're zooming in on our character, because we're not moving past it. We're just zooming in our camera a little bit. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and adjust these three features, the brightness, the saturation, and the contrast. So typically I'm normally turning up the contrast to make the darks darker, the brights brighter. I might adjust the brightness if it's a particularly dark photo, and I'm typically going to be turning up the saturation because no one really likes muted colors. So basically turning up the color brightness a little bit captures the eye a little bit better. And then after that, we're finding a filter that I think fits the photo and the motif of the photo itself, or the scene I'm trying to depict with the photo itself. But this is the basic kind of function of camera mode within here, and you can use it to take photos of your ships. A lot of people like to take space photos of their ships. Um, but you can take very interesting combat photos, photos of xenolife you find throughout the settled systems, or interesting events you see happening in the skybox above you. We're going to take one last combat photo here. So basically what I was doing was I was kind of sitting back, relaxing, letting my companion fight with an enemy with melee combat, and I wanted to take an interesting photo of it. So I kind of stopped the gameplay midway, and I'm just looking around for different angles until I find one that I like, which happens to be this one in particular, and that's because mainly I can see the melee weapon of the enemy combatant, and I can also see the melee weapon of my companion, and I like the angle a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom it in because the perspectives look nice to me. I didn't want to change it anymore by moving the camera itself, so we're just going to use this zoom function to kind of zoom it in. Not going to do anything with the player positions because I like the posing already. It's more natural posing, and typically a lot of times I go with the more natural posing, especially when I'm taking combat photos. I hardly ever do those preset poses with combat. Actually, I'd say I'd never do. But after we've adjusted everything, turned up the saturation a little bit, turn up the contrast a little bit, maybe make some adjustments to the brightness, I'm going to do the same thing that we always kind of do here, where we're going to turn the filter intensity down and kind of flip through the different filters until I find one that happens to capture my attention. And that's basically how I'm going to take the photo. So taking photos is pretty easy. I would not say that I am the best at taking photos. There are a lot of people out there that are a ton better than me. What I will tell you is all the photos you've seen me take here were taken on an Xbox Series S. So this is the worst possible graphics that you will see in this game. Like if you have a nice gaming rig, your photos will look a lot better than mine because the graphics settings, you'll be able to turn them up a lot higher than I can. But pretty easy with photo mode, and I know that what I would say is there is definitely a spectrum and range amongst the Starfield community of how do I say this, skill with photo mode. So I've seen it range the gambit from people taking screenshots with their smartphone of the television screen. I've seen that shared into communities, but I've also seen stuff that looks like straight up a movie poster that has been shared amongst different communities. And basically this is just to help people understand how photo mode works. It's relatively easy. You don't need to be particularly skilled at taking photos to understand like the basic concepts of, saturation, contrast, and then field of vision are the big ones. There are some posings things, and then you can also mess with the facial expressions of characters, etc. But the basics is your field of vision, your filters, and then the brightness, saturation, and contrast. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video there, friends. If you have any interesting tips and tricks you have for taking cool photos within Starfield, please share them in the comments section. Or if you're looking for someplace where you want to be able to share photos, that's going to be in the follow-up video, but I will also include the in the description. I'll include my Discord, and a lot of people love to share some digital photography on my Discord, which you're more than welcome to join and share away whatever photos you have taken. But as always, friends, please enjoy the rest of your night.